Welcome to Shelor Select. The whole system will be ready in a few minutes. Take your seat and enjoy.
All right, Lynne, thank you so much for being here, and it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. I know we've already talked a little bit going into this, but why don't you give everyone a little snippet of who you are and about your book, and we'll kind of take the party on from there. How about that?
We can do that, but I have to warn you, I am so old, Chris, that it takes time anytime you talk about a bio or resume or anything, it's like, God, it just goes on and on and on.
What is the Reader's Digest version?
Yeah. Because I had my first full-time job in an advertising agency in 1966. And I like to say that because most people by now have seen Mad Men.
Oh, I love Mad Men.
Right. That was me. I was wearing those clothes. I was doing that stuff. I had big boobs, just like, which one? So Peggy was the copywriter, right? And
Redhead?
Joni, who was it? Anyway, that's what we looked like. And that's what we did. And so that was 1966 for me. And
is New York or Hollywood? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
What's that?
Is this New York or Hollywood?
That was, yeah, I grew up in LA and it was Los Angeles. Yeah. I was working in the garment district in downtown Los Angeles. That was my first real actual job. I went to UCLA.
Nice.
It was great, but it seemed kind of stupid to me. I was there for 3 semesters. And my mother had died, and it was the 60s, and it all seemed so crazy to be sitting in one of those big, like 500 people lectures, listening to somebody talk about geology. And I didn't care, right? I just did not care. I wanted to go and do stuff and be somebody. And it's fun to talk about it again. I have a famous friend from those days. He was a gawky freshman when I was a sophomore, and he was in my English class. And I thought he was adorable. And we made a nice friendship, and we used to meet out on the quad, and he would bring me poetry, Ferlinghetti poems, and all these things that I hadn't been introduced to. And I had the best time. And then I left. I went to Europe, and I didn't know until 20 years later, I found out at my high school reunion that I was this big crush, and I didn't know it. I loved him, but I was the older woman. I was a sophomore, right? So we couldn't like have a thing or anything like that. And so when I knew him, his name was Lou Alcindor. And he then became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
What?
Yeah. Didn't you know that?
I knew he had I knew he changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I could not remember what his
name was. Lou
birth
Alcindor.
name was.
Right. And he was just impossibly tall and skinny and very shy and brilliant. And so we would talk about, he was clearly a good writer, and I met him in English class. So we would talk about writing and English and philosophy and all those things. What a wonderful guy. Interesting guy. So 20 years later, I called his office, and the way I found out was he wrote about me in his first book, which is called, I think, Giant Steps. I went to my high school reunion, and somebody said, "Hey, so you're the one in the book." And I'm like, "What book?" And he said, "What, didn't you know Kareem Abdul?" I said, "Well, yeah, but," and he said, "Well, I think you ought to go get his book." I'm like, damn. I mean, it was college. It was the 60s. Come on. You don't ever think anybody's going to write about.
Sure.
Right? What you do.
And arguably one of the best players ever played professional basketball. Yeah.
Well, so I ran out and got the book and read it. And it was just this really sweet piece. about the time that we had together. So I went back to my office. By that time, I was working in San Jose in an advertising agency. And so I called his office and said, just tell him thank you. Tell him, Lynn called and she said, you're the one in the book. I'm like, yeah, but just tell him that I'm really, that thank you. That was very sweet. So about a half an hour later, he called me. And it was great because we were both between marriages, and we had some time together and to get to know each other again. He had kids, I had kids, and I got to, because I never knew a damn thing about basketball. I'd never been to a basketball game in my life. Yeah. And
our greatest coaches too at UCLA too at that time. So
Woody was amazing. Yeah. But I wasn't my world. I didn't care. That wasn't,
I understand.
Wasn't what I was doing. So, and I've never been a professional sports fan or a high school sports fan. I was an artiste,
I get that.
So I went to my first professional ball games, and that was really sweet. We had a good time together. And then he went on to his life, and I went on to my next life. But I just, if you ever had any doubt about what a great man he is truly a great man.
I've never had a doubt based on.
He's a brilliant, brilliant guy, deeply thinking, feeling guy.
Just what little I know about him, obviously just what I've seen in articles, podcasts, ESPN or whatever. Yeah. I think he was at the Super Bowl too. He just seems like he has deep thoughts. He just doesn't talk to talk. He does. He actually thinks about things or topics or what's going on.
He's a brilliant man. And it's so interesting to think about how we are shaped and colored by our costume that we come to Earth with, right? I mean, I remember seeing him for the first time and just going, wow, what is it like to be so long and so tall that you can't fit in a chair in a classroom, And so here he was gifted with this amazing body and height and mind. And isn't it interesting what he did with it? And here I am, this sort of pint-sized person.
I'm with you. I might be 5'6", 5'7" on a tall day, but
well, you're tall to me, honey. So anyway, I've always been fascinated with that, like what we do with this uniform, whatever it is that we are gifted this time around.
Like the conscience that you're given in your body and that, and gifts that you may receive and just what you choose to do with it in your life. Yeah.
Many of which we're unaware of too. We don't even think of them as a gift or a talent or anything. So I don't know, where were we? We were talking about history and background. So I left UCLA and I went on and I wanted to work and I did work. I worked as an illustrator. I worked as an actress, as a makeup person, as a kind of, in those days, women, there were a lot of limitations on what you could do and where you could go. So my friends and I did what was available to do. And I was in LA, so there was a movie industry, and my friends typically were in some form in the movie industry. So I'd get a call from somebody, do you do makeup? Yeah, I do makeup. And off I'd go, And I spent some time sitting on the beach, smoking and drinking Red Mountain wine and, playing poker.
Playing poker?
Did a lot of that. Oh, yeah,
I would have never pegged you for that one.
Hey, don't threaten me.
But
I will call your bluff, honey. So anyway, life, and I wound up as getting a job as a weather person at the NBC affiliate in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Hey.
Well, yes. And so I have the distinction of being the worst weather person ever, I think, in broadcast news ever. And if you were there and you saw it, you'll know that I'm telling the truth. So this was in like 1971.
What do you mean? Why was it so bad?
I didn't know shit about weather. Nothing. I had thought I was getting a news desk because I had been a journalist. I'd been working on a legal newspaper in LA, and say, no, you're gonna do weather. What? Because girl, right?
Well, good-looking girl, right? And you said you had big boobs earlier.
Yeah.
But also, being a weather person, that it doesn't really matter if you're right or wrong. Nobody really takes fault into that. Like, well, they got it wrong. All right.
Okay, but the week I got there, they had the worst storm they'd had in 100 years.
Oh.
So all of a sudden, weather mattered. It was a thing. And here was this bimbo, right, who couldn't help them at all. So anyway, so life went on. I married. I had 3 little ones. I had married badly. Right.
What do you mean? You married badly?
Well, he was tall, good looking, fast talking, 3-piece suit. But what I didn't know was he had been a Marine and he did 2 tours in Vietnam.
Okay.
And like a lot of men, he came back, or a lot of people, I think there were women too involved, but he came back, changed his clothes on the plane, never talked about it again. Just put it, because we were protesting. It was an unpopular war.
Sure.
And here's a word that I've learned recently, Chris. It's a good one. We can talk about this more, maybe in another show. It's called moral injury. It's what happens when you do something that you feel is your duty or your responsibility, but that is immoral, that is highly against your sense of morality.
Yeah.
So think about those boys in that jungle, and they were given beer and dope and weapons and trained to use them. And most of them went because they wanted to be John Wayne, they wanted to be heroes, and they wanted to do the right thing. And then they got over there and they were killing women and children. They were lighting things on fire. They were, it was a nightmare, and in the worst way. So they came back. You don't ever lose. That's part of you now.
Yeah. It's with you forever.
Yeah. And so, like so many, he began to just unravel and started doing crazy things and disappearing. And he became obviously a risk for me and for my 3 little tiny ones.
So you thinking PTSD? I'm sorry to cut you off, but you thinking PTSD for sure?
Well, and that's what you call it. But at the time, this guy is just nuts. He's just one minute he's this, and then the next minute, literally, he had a chainsaw and cut my house in half in the middle of January with a chainsaw because he got upset. 3 babies. So I realized that I was going to die. My kids were going to die if I stayed. And so I told him I was going on a vacation. I was going to go see my sister. And I got on a train with my 3, with what they could carry, what I could carry. And we came to California. And I lived in a driveway and lied my way into freelance work. I had a good book, we called it in those days, of the ads that I'd done and so on. Okay. And I landed in Silicon Valley in 1980, which was, if you will recall, just when the microcomputer had become a thing. And so I think, here's another historical note, I think I have the distinction of being the first person to write advertising copy in at least California on an Apple II, on a computer.
What?
Microcomputer. So I arrived at the agency with this, and my sister had taught me how to use it. And I was like, no, it's a computer. I can't do that. She said, you're going to do this because you have to do this. And so it started me on this whole different trajectory, a new career, of being one of the people who interpreted technology for the general public. In other words, here were all these companies making things like modems, and nobody knew what the hell a modem was, right? You don't know what they are.
No, I do know what they are.
You do?
I work in IT. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So my job was translating for the general public, like, you need this because it does this, and so I was the kind of go-between between the engineers that said, well, you don't need to tell them anything, just tell them it's faster and better. No, we need to explain what they do and why you want them, whatever, because it was just this whole strange new world of computers.
Well, it's one of those things that people probably didn't ever think computers were going to take off. So why the hell do I need this? Or
right.
Who cares?
And men would not put their fingers on a keyboard because in 1980, the only people who put their fingers on keyboards were women, were secretaries, lesser people. Yeah. So we had a hell of a job to retrain guys that no, it's cool. Keyboards are cool. Mm-hmm. You'll be okay. Shove her out of the way. You put your fingers on the keyboard. You're going to love it. And so it took, 5-10 years before people started going, oh yeah, it's cool. I have power now. I have control. And even the art directors that I worked with and the photographers, they were not going to touch computer. It's like, computer, are you crazy? Right? And these big time creative types out of LA and New York by this time had come into town. And they thought, okay, it's fine to talk about this and write about this, but you don't expect us to use those things, do you? So it was quite a revolution in many ways, and it's still going on.
Yeah, we're still, well, not when I say we, I'm not fighting the battle, I guess, but yeah, it's almost a narrative, just like you're saying that, women are just, below men, and, like you just said, men shouldn't have to do certain types of work or whatever, and like, for example, secretaries. That's a cultural narrative, is when somebody says secretary, most people, I would think, I'm generally speaking, would think, oh, that's a women's position.
Yep.
But it's not necessarily the case.
Here I am getting my revenge.
And now look at you, you're on Zoom meetings, writing books, doing podcasts, doing big things.
Well, it's fun because I'm 75. Now, Really? Now, I just gave you a timeline. You didn't do the math?
For 75.
You did not do the math?
No, I was trying to listen to what you were saying. I ain't trying to do 15 different things in my head. But yeah, you look great for 75, though. I'm impressed.
Well, thank you. But the point is, people think of 75 as being this kind of over the hill, kind of old. I'm here to tell you that I've never been so happy that you too will have a great time and love it if you do what I tell you to do.
Oh, yeah?
Are you ready?
I'm ready if you're ready.
Okay. It's all right there in that book.
Brownies for breakfast.
Brownies for breakfast. It's all about, it's about creating a network, a loving network. That's the guarantee that you will be happy when you're 75. This is science-based. I'm not making this up.
Sure.
If you have friends, family, people around you that you love and care about, that is a big guarantor of your happiness as a 75 and plus year old. But the other big guarantor is if you are healthy. If you are healthy, chances are excellent that you're going to be happy, and also that you will be financially in better shape, good enough shape. Because people your age, my dear, don't think about how much it will cost you to be unhealthy. You're still in the immortal phase of your life. Like nothing can happen to you, right?
Sometimes I think that for the most part, but yeah.
And if you ever come to imagine your demise, do you ever think about how you're going to die?
A lot. It's one of my biggest fears.
Is that? Yeah. Does it involve flames and things blowing up?
No, nothing like that. It's just more of, when you're talking 75 and just when people say like, oh, you're over the hill, you might as well just go ahead and get on your deathbed. Mm-hmm. But it's more of just like, what will life be like? I'm 36 or 30. No, I'm 35. I will be 36. Mm-hmm. So 40 years from now. And, talking about healthcare and how much it costs, I was doing a little research, and that the CDC, I think, said that and I think it was 2017, 2018, that if you have, and I know the reason you wrote the book was part of diabetes and stuff, and that if you have diabetes, it's $14,000 a year in healthcare costs. I think I could be misquoting that, but it was something. Right,
if you're on insulin, it's probably double that.
Right. And maybe, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. So yeah, when I think about it, it's like, man, and that's part of the reason I've always tried to live a healthy lifestyle and kind of watch what I eat for the most part. And this, I want to move. I want to be able to be 75 years old and doing exactly what you're doing right now, free, independent,
Yes.
great sound, body and mind, and
all
that good stuff.
And I can dance.
Oh yeah.
Can you dance?
I mean, I dance, but I mean, it might be just a matter of judgment on is it well or is it good. But
I didn't say I danced well.
Okay. I do like to dance though, but yeah, like at weddings.
Okay, there you go. And I do Pilates 3 times a week and love it. And I got a treadmill over here. We have beaches. But yes, if you are moving, that's a huge, huge part of it. Doesn't have to be Pilates. Doesn't have to be working out. Yeah. Just moving your buns, walking. It's great. So that's one of the pillars for sure. But now I'm going to ask you some personal questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can we talk about you for a minute?
Yeah, that's fine. This is what this.
Okay. Do you eat sugar?
I'll limit my sugar, but do I eat sugar? Yes, but it's not very rare, but on weekends, usually, so 6 days a week I work out, but on my cheat days, yeah, I'll throw down.
Do you read the label on every single packaged food that you eat?
No.
Okay. You're eating sugar all the time and you don't know it.
Well,
there is literally sugar in every packaged food that you eat. With very few exceptions.
I don't eat a lot. Well, most of my diet is nuts, fruits, vegetables, a lot of meat. So when it comes to packaged food, yeah, I do.
Where are you getting your meat? What kind of meat are you eating?
I try to eat as much grass-fed beef as I can.
From where?
Well, when around here, it's whatever I can get at the grocery store. But I know it's not always, it's pure, could just be label.
Because I want to congratulate you for knowing that that's what you need. But I want to ask you to be more careful about it because marketing wise now, everybody's saying, yeah, grass fed. Yeah. No.
That was my point. Because it says that doesn't ultimately 100%.
No, you need to know who raised that beef, where that beef was raised, and hopefully have a first name for, if not the steer, the farmer.
Right.
Because there's just so much BS, appropriate word, in the market right now about it. But yeah, you need, if you're going to eat animals, they need to be the lean animals that have grazed their whole lives, not just had grass waved over them so they could put a label on that says grass fed.
Sure. I agree 100%. I don't agree with factory farming by any means. I mean, you've watched the videos, I've watched the videos and it's atrocious, but
yeah, for the animals and for you too.
Correct. Yeah. Cause you don't, whatever they're feeding all grain basically, but, crap, I forgot my point, but
the antibiotics, all the crud that they put in those critters. And so I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. So we've talked about sugar because I'm going to challenge you to totally quit. I want you to totally quit. And here's the rationale. It is addictive. Do you know that? You know that.
Sure.
Sugar is truly, not metaphorically, it is biologically addictive. Sure. You're addicted. And so if you said to me that you were addicted to heroin, and I said, and then you said to me, but I'm going to cut back, what would I say to you?
Probably
about cutting back on heroin.
Like, how much are you going to cut back, or are you really going to?
No, I'd say bullshit. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. You don't cut back on heroin. You quit. You go cold turkey. You go into rehab. You substitute some other chemical, but you can't cut back on a highly addictive substance. It just doesn't work like that. So I'm going to challenge you to totally quit sugar. Oh, you're making a face at me. No. Okay. No. I'm going to challenge you to totally quit sugar. And I'm going to encourage you to keep making sure if you eat meat, I want you to know that it's okay meat.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want you to quit dairy. Can you quit dairy?
Yeah, that's not a problem. If any dairy at all in my diet is hardly
No cheese.
next to none. Little cheese, maybe, but it's rare.
Okay, no more cheese.
Okay.
Okay. And you're eating tons of vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
fruit.
most of my meals are just meat and vegetables.
Okay, so we're good.
Yeah, mostly meat,
that's,
but then with little vegetables.
That's all I want for everybody. The only difference is, and the reason I wrote a book called Brownies for Breakfast is for people to know that they can eat brownies and donuts and cakes and pies and all kinds of things and savory things, macaroni and cheese, if you make them yourself or have your beloved make them for you. Mm-hmm. And you make them out of good food, the way I will explain in the book how to do it. It's simple. You will add 30 good years to your life.
I agree.
30 years. And that's science-based. I'm not making it up.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. That's all about what we're putting in our bodies, day in and day out. But I think there's an issue with maybe the cultural narrative and with the standard American diet that
the SAD diet. I love that. Yeah, standard American diet. Yeah.
That it's with people like there seems to always be in a rush. And I'm generally speaking, of course. But that's why they go to Wendy's or go to McDonald's, just grab that. And then that's why factory farming exists, is grab that apparently 100% beef, all patty or whatever they promote in their campaigns. And like, oh, dinner is served. I fed a family for 4 for $20,
Well, not anymore.
All true.
Particularly since 1980, the statistics are just horrifying. That the number of people who don't cook at all, who the only meals that they eat are drive-through meals, fast food. And every single meal that you eat that's like that is a meal where you have not been nourished in any way.
Right.
Like you're better off not eating anything. And in fact, that's a whole other discussion, because now a lot of us are talking about intermittent fasting, which only means skipping a meal once in a while, which is, again, when you look at the science now on longevity, on diabetes, on chronic disease, the best treatment, which is totally different than I was told. I've been diabetic since I was in my 40s and controlled. And I controlled it by keeping my weight down, not eating a lot of carbs, not eating sugar, and so on. But there's some new information out there in the last 5 to 10 years. It's fascinating. And one of the things is that the best science, the best results that anyone gets with reversing, and I'm putting quotes around it, but really managing diabetes is with intermittent fasting, i.e., not 3 meals a day. You limit the time in the day that you eat, and that can be a 6-hour window or an 8-hour window. And I particularly am a proponent of the Ayurvedic method, which is you eat when the sun is high, which is when your guts are active and steaming and they're ready to digest. And it's the energetic part of your day. And that's when your body is ready to receive food, middle of the day.
Okay.
When the sun starts to fade, when the day is going away, you're done. You need to be finished eating in the afternoon at some point. In my life, it's 3 or 4 in the afternoon, sometimes a little earlier, every once in a while a little later, but you don't eat after dark. You don't even eat when it's getting dark, because your body your circadian rhythm, another great subject, is dictating through you are receiving signals from the light that's available that's saying, okay, slow it down, because there's a whole other set of processes that need to take place in your body. One of my new favorite words, autophagy. You like that one?
I do like that one. Never heard
Great
that.
word. What it means is what the cells do in your brain, particularly at night when they're done doing everything else, ostensibly. When it's not, there's no more food coming through, you're not exercising, you're done.
Yeah.
You're asleep. And so now the road crew comes out, right? It's like a freeway. The cars are gone. Everybody's gone home. Now the road crew comes out and with the shovels and the stuff and the brooms and the hoses, and they clean everything out for you. They're now calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Do you know that?
No, I haven't heard that yet.
Because it's a couple of things that have been indicated as real problems that result in Alzheimer's. One is sugar.
Agree.
And two is lack of sleep. Because your body only heals when you're in deep sleep. And this autophagy only takes place when you're resting, when you're sleeping. And without that cleaning, you've got gunk. You have that's, people understand what that means. If you don't clean your car, if you don't clean your house, if you don't, you're going to have problems, right?
Yeah.
You get gunk.
Yeah.
And you've been getting gunk in your brain if you have not been truly resting. And what happens when you throw a pizza down at 11 o'clock at night? I've seen you. I know what you do. Not only are you eating crappy food, most likely, because it's processed white flour and it's preserved meat. Preserved meat is a poisonous food in many ways. It's highly carcinogenic.
Sure.
Pepperoni, and cheese. So you throw that down at 11 o'clock at night and your cleaning crew goes, wait, we got some stuff coming through here. And, everybody has to stand back for the pizza to come through. So the cleaning doesn't get done. And it's a simple thing, isn't it? It's like, yeah, what a grandma thing to be telling people, but people don't seem to understand that they need to let their body rest, really rest. And that means no food, no booze, no drink, and no crazy bright things blowing up on a screen either. Because that really confuses your eyeballs and the circadian rhythm stuff. So if you want to be 75 or 80 and mean and having fun and, healthy,
yeah,
you gotta get with that program now.
Well, I agree 100% with everything you're saying, but I think people, like we were talking about cultural narratives and social narratives, people just don't care anymore. They work their 9 to 5. They might be miserable at their job. So when they get off work, they go get that, milkshake and a burger. And then like, oh yeah, I'm great now. This is fine. Right. And they go home and redo it all again. Then they stay up all night watching Netflix and whatever. Then they get mad at themselves or they get mad at, said person just because they're mad they're not losing weight or they're not as healthy as they plan to be. And then something happens and they're like, oh, I don't understand why this is happening to me.
You never think it's going to be you.
Exactly. And then it does. And then you're like, oh, then you need to sit back. And hopefully one thing with this pandemic and quarantine or whatever, that people can sit back. And one thing I know I've done it, you reflect, all right, hold on. What have I been doing the past couple of years? What was my diet like? Have I been moving? How much time have I been binge watching Netflix or, doing, whatever stuff that you could be bettering yourself on. But I've always, I've said it on a couple of times that, time is the one thing that money doesn't buy any more of. There might be a couple of one things, but that's one of the biggest things. And like we're talking about that when I get, to be 75, I CrossFit, 6 days a week. Love it. It's changed my life. I've been doing it for 8 years now, but I've always said to people down there, when I'm 75, hopefully I'm still doing muscle ups and picking up 225 and stuff like that. And but a lot of it comes outside what you're doing outside of the gym, not only inside, but outside. And it kind of, most of people starts with your diet. What are you putting in your body? Like you've been talking about.
Yep. And I want you to put your feet in the dirt.
Oh, take your shoes off and walk, you mean? Yeah.
I want you to get the magnetic energy from the earth. It's good to have contact with the soil. It's good also to have contact first thing in the morning with the sun, not inside your house, not coming through a window, but just step outside and actually get some of the sun's radiation on your skin.
Sure.
Because what that's sending signals to your body that it's time to go, it's time to do, let's energy up, let's learn. And too many of us spend our lives in these cages, in environments where there are no trees, there's no life, and we spend our life in shoes. Some of us, like me, have to be careful that we don't. I mean, I have had plantar fasciitis, which is something that happens to many of us when we get a little older.
Sure.
And so you need to have a supportive shoe. But it's okay to take your shoes off and walk in the sand or in the dirt as much as you can. And, listen to some birds. And what we're finding out about the trees is mind-blowing. Are you following all the new science about what goes on in those trees underneath the ground, connecting with the other trees? Do you know about this, Chris?
No. The only thing I've been really keeping track on is that, actually trees and plants have more of a conscious that, and I want to say conscious that we're more aware of, just because that I forgot where I read it at or saw it at or heard it at, but like if a caterpillar was eating leaves on a plant or whatever, another plant beside it would immediately start to change its, I guess, taste, or I don't know if that's the right word.
They react.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they react to it and they're listening. It's like, oh man, I don't want nobody to eat me. So I'm going to change that. I taste like trash. So, but as far as stuff, I don't know.
I live here at the edge of the redwoods, as you know.
Beautiful.
It is gorgeous, but it's also kind of magical because these trees are old. And I'm reading about this stuff like crazy now, but they have found, and it was, by the way, women who did the science on this. They have found that there are fungal networks under the ground that go for miles. There are hub trees that are the grandma trees who feed other trees, who talk to other trees, who send all kinds of signals out about what's going on. And they are managing the forest all around them. And they're very aware when somebody gets cut down or when somebody's sick, whatever. And they're also finding that up in the upper story of these trees, there is soil that is growing other plants up in these trees. Did you know that?
No.
Who knew that? There's a whole other layer of forest and growth and plants and animals up there.
Interesting.
Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah, I would have never even thought that.
No, and then underneath this fungal network, it's literally like an internet going among all the trees, and it's fungi. And of course, you see the mushrooms when they come up out of the dirt, but underneath, it's miles and miles and miles of this stuff. And it's a communication network. And it's the mama trees, the grandma trees, that are sending out the messages and trying to protect their babies. And when you're here in the redwood forest, you know that, and you walk back, you can see it. You can almost hear it. You can feel it. They are so magical, and they give off all kinds of stuff. I think they're trying to get rid of us, frankly. And I think they're trying to get rid of us with hay fever, with allergies.
Oh, trust me. I know how that goes. Springtime every year.
Right.
Sounds like the movie Avatar that you're talking about, where everything's
a little bit. Yeah. It's a little bit like that. I remember that movie. I was like, whoa,
great movie.
Because when you're near these trees, first of all, they're so huge, the old ones. And where I live, there's some old growth redwood, and they're giants. They're really, really giants. But they came through and clear cut a lot of this 100 and some years ago. And where they clear cut, a whole circle of trees grows up out of the stump.
Yeah.
Babies grow. And those babies are now 100 feet tall. Come and see us. You haven't seen it.
I would love to. I've never been out to California, but I would love to go check that out.
You need to walk in those trees.
But I want to ask that, with your book, and you talked about mushrooms earlier, and I've been reading a lot about that. And there's a lot of science that seems to be coming out now about the positivities of, like lion's mane
They're
and
great
chaga.
food. They're great food.
And I think Johns Hopkins did a study with using psilocybin with UFC fighters and people suffering from PTSD, like we talked about earlier. I mean, are you using that too with your ingredients or in the book?
In my book, there is a recipe, and my stuff is really classic. I mean, it's very sort of grandma stuff, purposefully, because I wanted people to feel that it was familiar. There was nothing strange or weird about it. It's a lot of the same dishes. So, and I cook like an Italian grandma or a French grandma. One of my favorite recipes is mushroom soup, which, and people don't know how simple this is. You take a bunch of mushrooms and you cut up an onion and you put it in a pan with a little bit of olive oil or a little bit of vegan butter, and you saute it. And then you add, and I use, of course, vegetable broth. If you wanted to use chicken broth, I suppose you could, but I use vegetable broth. Yeah. And you cook it for an hour, and then you throw it in a blender, and you keep the lid on the blender tight so it doesn't blow up. And you make this creamy mushroom soup, and then you put a splash of whiskey in it and some salt. And and you go, wait, that's all you do for this soup? Yes, it's magic. It's magic. And mushrooms are magic food. They're really great for you. They have a lot of properties that are kind of unique in terms of nutrition to the mushroom. But I gave the recipe to this attorney friend of mine, and I think I tell this story in the book too, because it just knocked me out. I thought it was so funny. And he said, Lynn, I did it. I made the soup, and it was so easy, and you were right, and it was amazing. It was so good, but you didn't tell me how good it was. And I ate the whole recipe. I ate all of it, and I didn't feel so good. It's like, right. It's meant for like 5 people, right? And you ate it all. But this is people who don't cook, which is most of us now. Do you cook?
I do. I try to cook my meals during the week. Yeah.
Okay. People who don't cook don't understand how easy and kind of foolproof it is to make good stuff. It's not hard. It's really easy. And the only way you will be healthy, the only way you will really nourish yourself is in the kitchen. You got to cook.
Yeah.
You have to. You can't buy it. You can't do DoorDash even. Restaurants, love y'all. I want you in business, but the way they make everything taste so good is with a ton of butter, ton of salt.
Of course.
All this stuff that is not, once in a while, okay. But the only way you're really going to be healthy and perky as a 75-year-old or as a 40-year-old, the only way you will keep your erectile function, and I think you probably want that,
of course, is
to cook real food.
Yeah. Mostly
plants, not too much. That's it. Michael Pollan, love him. That's what he said. It's true.
I cook. I eat. The way I explain it, I eat almost every meal is just almost the same thing for me, and yeah, and just because it works for me. I know it works, and it works for my body, and I feel good during my workouts, and then like on the weekends is when I kind of splurge a little bit and get enough sugar, or maybe have a few glasses of whiskey that you were just talking about earlier. But yeah, can it be better? Yes, of course, you always do better, but. It's just like we were talking about earlier. It's just so easy for somebody to go get DoorDash, and they're like, no, I'm not going to spend 20 or 30 minutes to cook. And then some people, I can't cook. It's like, well, yes, you can. And, I had an argument with, it wasn't really an argument, but just kind of a conversation like we were having, that they were talking about, well, cooking and baking is pretty hard. It's like, well, I can follow a recipe. It's not, it's just a matter of taking the time and doing it. It's just a matter, do you really want to do it, or do you just want to go get
these brownies, the brownies of the title, Brownies for Breakfast, are one bowl, about 6 ingredients. You throw it in the bowl, you stir it up, you put it in the pan, and they're a meal. And they're made from nut butter, pumpkin, monk fruit as a sweetener, which is just, it's real food. It's a great sweetener. And I also use chicory root and some other things. Some cocoa, some baking powder. What am I forgetting? Eggs or egg substitute. Boom, in the bowl, in the oven. And each one is like low carb, low calorie, like 130 calories a piece for a brownie.
Yeah.
And it's made out of nuts and pumpkin. And I guarantee you, I could slap those puppies down on any potluck, anywhere in this country, even Virginia.
Love it.
On Sunday, and people would go, "Oh my goodness, Ms. Bowman, those are just delicious. How in the world did you make those, honey?" And they wouldn't believe it if I told them.
No, of course not. I want to circle back a little bit, and just because I'm curious that, when did you get, you were talking about, did you get diagnosed with diabetes in your 40s? Is that what you said?
I did. I had gestational diabetes, which is common when women become pregnant. Sometimes it throws their body into a diabetic state.
Okay.
And they told me when my first child was born, 1975, that I would most likely become diabetic, type 2 diabetic, when I got a little older. So when I was looking at 40, I started asking to be tested, and they go, "Oh no, you're not overweight. You're young." I had to beg for somebody to give me a hemoglobin A1C test, which I hope you're starting to get pretty soon. Maybe you're a little young, but when you're in your 40s, you want to have that as part of your annual exam. And a hemoglobin A1C tells you what your average blood glucose is over a period of time. So it's an accurate picture of how your body is dealing with sugar. And so when I was tested in my early 40s, sure enough, I was just barely into diabetic range. And so because I had this passion, I wanted to stay alive for my kids. I wanted to be able to raise my children. I was determined I was going to stay healthy, and I was going to do whatever I had to do to stay healthy, which meant exercising. And if you're diabetic, really, the way you clear glucose out of your system is to walk, is to move. That's what gets that glucose out of your system. And that's pretty much the only way that you will immediately reduce your blood glucose. So you don't take it in. You try to be very careful about what you're taking in. And then you also exercise to manage it once it's in your body. So I've been doing that since I was in my early 40s. And then I went to a conference in 2019 and had my mind blown because I watched PowerPoints for 5 days from these docs from all over the world, the Plantricians Conference. And it was guys like Dean Ornish and T. Colin Campbell, big name natural nutrition guys from all around. And a lot of surgeons, all these different kinds of practices came together to talk about the fact that diabetes and heart disease both are largely a problem that result from animal fat.
Really?
And I was like, wait, what? Because I'd been eating meat like a crazy, that was what you don't eat carbs, so you eat meat.
Yeah.
Right? And cheese and stuff. And so after that, at the end of that conference, I was vegan. And I did an experiment with myself for 1 6-month period. I had just had my numbers done. And my husband was in. He said, "Okay, I'm in." And so we just used ourselves as an experiment of 2. And I was already eating healthy, right? By a lot of measures. But for 6 months, I did not eat 1 bite of any kind of animal food. And guess what? My hemoglobin A1C came down 3 points.
That's impressive.
So I was a convert. And so now I do eat some fish. I eat some salmon and some shrimp. Not a lot. It's a treat. And that's the only animal food. And I do eat eggs.
Okay.
But that's the only animal food I eat. I don't eat dairy. And the good news is I wasn't desperate to lose weight, but I lost like 15 pounds.
Yeah, it just happened automatically.
It just goes away, which if you're diabetic, it's good to be skinny. I mean, that it puts you in a better place. And most of the endocrinologists are fond of saying, if you will just get back to weighing what you weighed in high school or whatever, just get your weight down as far as you can get it. And I realized that the way to do that is just don't eat animal fat. Easy. That's it. And I eat food. I don't limit what I eat. I don't write down what I eat. I don't measure calories. No. I don't count carbs. None of that. I just eat good food, mostly plants. No. And you may know this, you're a meat eater, but if you are eating nutrient-dense food, vegetables, whole food, fruits, you can't overeat.
No. Yeah, quality over quantity, for sure.
You just can't. You get to a certain point, your body goes, okay, good.
There we go.
We're good.
Yeah.
So it's the best weight loss program in the world. You don't have to think about it. You just don't eat crap.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple when you come down to it. I mean,
it's very simple.
Yeah, but people, we were just saying earlier, and just people don't want to use that. They just want to do their own thing. But Lynne, I want to be respectful of your time. I know I got you for a little bit. So
well, you're going to have me back. That's the deal.
I would love it. Because I know you have excellent stories, and I know
I have stories. I have so many stories.
But like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. So before we get off here, tell everyone how they find you, how they find the book, or anything else you want to say. And all that stuff.
Website, lynnebowman.com. It's LYNNEBOWMAN.com. Sign up for Lynne's list. It's on the front page, and I'll send you good recipes when I'm inclined. Not all the time. I'm lazy. But sometimes I just really want to share stuff. It's too good to keep to myself. So I will send you stuff if you sign up. And also there's a little place where you can contact me. And I love it when you send me pictures of your brownies that you made or your pumpkin pie that you made from my recipe, or ask me questions. I'm always tickled when people want to get in touch with me about their eating and their and whatever has happened because of the book. That's why I wrote it. I don't want it sitting on a shelf. I want you using it. I want it open in your kitchen. And by the way, it's really pretty. I have a wonderful designer that I work with, Elise Huffman. It's a beautiful book full of photographs. You can have a sneak peek at my kitchen and my house and my dogs. They're in there. There's a picture of a weasel too. And I think this is the only cookbook I know of that has a picture of a weasel in it. I'm not sure, but the book is Brownies for Breakfast, a cookbook for diabetics and the people who love them. So that's everybody in the whole world. Mm-hmm. And I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. My author name is Lynne Parmiter Bowman. So you can search that. So middle name Parmiter. But if you just search Lynne Bowman, get the E on Lynne, you'll find me. Website, lynnebowman.com. That's easy. I've got a YouTube page. You can find that.
Doing big things. It's you.
Yeah, I'm out there. I
am impressed. So, all right. Well, this was great. This was very great. Thank you again for being here, and it was a pleasure to meet you. This was great.
I'm so happy to meet you, and I can't wait to do it again.
Good, and we'll set that up. All right, everyone, we're out of here. Be good to yourselves. All that good stuff. Brownies for breakfast. Go get it.